So when you take chlorophyll, and you can literally buy chlorophyll in a capsule, you can buy it in a powder. People add it to their food, but you can also just eat the vegetables that have the chlorophyll in it. And when you do that, that's going to help to, again, bind to your blood in order to help move oxygen through your blood better. All right. That's going to give you better blood pressure. That's going to give you better heart function and all of the things, circulation, all of that is improved when you have blood that is sort of purified, so to speak. All right. That chlorophyll is going to attach to your blood vessels, is going to help it move through your body better. And then you won't have the buildup of that blood pressure in your veins that results in what we call high blood pressure. Right. And then that ends up showing up as so many different ailments in our body that really originates in our blood. So eating high amounts of chlorophyll, all the leafy greens and anything that has a green color to it is going to give us that really healthy blood flow and keep us from a lot of different ailments, right? So if you think about all the herbivores out there, look at the deer, right? All they eat is this stuff and they're like super healthy. The chemical structure of chlorophyll is very similar to the chemical structure of hemoglobin that's in our blood. So chlorophyll, they say, is used as a blood purifier. So when you take chlorophyll, and you can literally buy chlorophyll in a capsule, you can buy it in a powder. People add it to their food, but you can also just eat the vegetables that have the chlorophyll in it. And when you do that, that's going to help to, again, bind to your blood in order to help move oxygen through your blood better. All right. That's going to give you better blood pressure. That's going to give you better heart function and all of the things, circulation, all of that is improved when you have blood that is sort of purified, so to speak. All right. That chlorophyll is going to attach to your blood vessels, is going to help it move through your body better. And then you won't have the buildup of that blood pressure in your veins that results in what we call high blood pressure. Right. And then that ends up showing up as so many different ailments in our body that really originates in our blood. So eating high amounts of chlorophyll, all the leafy greens and anything that has a green color to it is going to give us that really healthy blood flow and keep us from a lot of different ailments, right? So if you think about all the herbivores out there, look at the deer, right? All they eat is this stuff and they're like super healthy. The chemical structure of chlorophyll is very similar to the chemical structure of hemoglobin that's in our blood. So chlorophyll,
and the colored white sugar called brown sugar. Then you have to stay off of bleached white flour and white rice because they turn to sugar very quickly in the body. And because it's turned into sugar very quickly, it turns into alcohol, which gives you hardening of the liver, cirrhosis of the liver. The sugar is seeking to get more water. It's trying to get the water that went with it when within the sugar cane. So it pulls the water out of your veins and arteries and decreases your circulation. That's sugar dehydrates your body. That's why it shuts down the veins and arteries in the feet, because it's pulling the water out of it. Shuts down the veins and arteries in the kidneys, pulling the water out of them. Shuts down the veins and arteries in the eyes, causing blindness. Sugar causes high blood pressure, arthritis, dialysis, I think they call it, the loss of your kidney, blindness, and arthritis. All those things are caused by sugar. But the supplements we use for sugar diabetes are bilberry, which is a herb, better known as blue raspberry leaves. Some people call it huckleberry leaves. You heard of huckleberry fin? That was named after that plant, huckleberry. Huckleberry leaves are what we call bilberry. That's the herb. There's also a herb called golden seal, which makes a chemical called inulin, which turns into insulin. There's a plant called string beans that comes from Africa. String bean juice, 4 ounces of a cup of it is equal to 4 units of insulin. Raw string bean juice. The mineral we take for diabetes mellitus is vanadyl sulfate. All you're doing is healing the pancreas with a mineral, healing it with a herb called bilberry, staying off of bleached white flour, white rice, white sugar, brown sugar, staying away from that totally. Some people still have that Jones for sugar. So I always treat diabetes with a substance called Cravex. called Cravex. That's the name of it. It gets rid of your craving for fat, salt, and sugar. So I always treat the craving because diabetics are the worst for staying on a diet. If I have a choice between treating a diabetic and an alcoholic, I'll treat an alcoholic any day. Diabetics that sneak up at night. They do all day they're doing right. Around 12 o'clock midnight when everybody's asleep, they're in there with some family cake or something, eating on her or something.
I wouldn't know that.
Yeah, they don't work. No. So I'm just saying, that's why I use the Cravex, because it's a chemical craving. So we have to flush out this chemical. I use Cravex along with the Vanadil and the bilberry and those changes in the diet. So you
Escape of black politics. Someone finally said the quiet part out loud.
Step up, tell us your name, and briefly, what's on your mind?
Hey, yo, as I look around this room, if you're 35 years old or younger, raise your hand. 4 people. So here's the thing. Y'all in trouble. Yesterday, you had Al Green up here talking about we need a Secretary of Reconciliation, and then that's going to include what he said was reparations, which, by the way, wasn't reparations. Reparations is more than a check, but the very first thing it is a check. And come this year during the midterms and in 2028, if you don't have our check, you won't get no vote. No check, no vote. Yeah, I know that ain't what you want to hear, but that's what's happening. All of y'all in here, with all due respect, you're beautiful, but you're old. You're not talking to the youth. You don't know how to talk to the youth. You try to tell us what to do. We're not having it no more. So if you want our vote, you got to come with our paper. We're not scared of Trump. We're not scared of anybody. Biden is a racist. Trump is a racist. Kamala is a racist. And if you don't have our money, you don't get our vote. Yeah, not.
It's business. Oh, he about to go off on this dude. See, look at that look. If you ever lived in New York and a New York dude look at you like that, you might want to back up. This little dude here, he's trying to stop the dialogue from happening, but this conversation is going to happen whether you all like it or not. For too long, you've been denying that the black grassroots exists. You've been running over them. You called them bots. You called everybody everything but a child of God. Oh, you said they couldn't read. You said they hadn't learned enough. Roland Martin cussing people out left and right. No, you are on notice. This is about to be the new normal right here. The poor little fella there in the white jacket, he's falling in line with his elders here that are not ready to have these conversations that we need to have.
Who are you? Oh, all right, yeah, so like I was saying, I'm going to land my plan right there, but the Democrats are no better than the Republicans. No check, no vote. Y'all take care. And somebody give my man a tissue. He need a tissue.
Thank you. First, let me clarify something. There are many.
You hear that? Somebody in the back hollering, leave, leave. They don't want to have that conversation. They don't want to have somebody up there that actually has something to say. They don't want any thought that goes against the status quo. How many times have y'all heard that in your households? How many times have you heard these arguments that are just so rigid and not moving? Yeah, there's some change that's coming right now. And unfortunately, this is what's going to take is actually going there and taking the mic, because these people have been playing for far too long. They've been playing. They haven't had no results. And so then somebody stands up here and they want to act like he damn did something. You're going to hear a little bit about that because Al Sharpton is now saying, he gets up there in his response and says that this guy is an agent. Something has changed.
Is this young man charged with unlawful carrying of possession for being under 21?
Correct.
Hold on, I got a kid. Here's the GPS.
But I'm more concerned about the defense of others. Did you hear it? I mean,
no, hold on a second. Here's the GPS.
let me give you a lawyer.
Yeah. Oh, I volunteer. Representative.
Representative gentleman.
Oh, hell yes. Here's the Fifth Circuit saying it's unconstitutional. Here is the United States District Court, Northern District, saying it's unconstitutional. Here's a motion to quash information. I'll just cross out the name.
Great job.
Yeah, I had to get in this fight yesterday, and I'm teed up. Hi, Judge.
Hey, did y'all hear about this? The Smithsonian is apologizing for how it amassed its vast collection of human remains. Guess who those human remains were? Indigenous people, black indigenous people that they tried to hide the history for white supremacy. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Okay, it says the head of the Smithsonian Institution is apologizing for the dark history behind its collection of human remains. In a recent Washington Post op-ed, Lonnie G. Bunch, III, Secretary of the Smithsonian Institution, addressed how the institution amassed a collection of tens of thousands of body parts during the first half of the 20th century, taken largely from black indigenous people as well as other people of color, and mostly without their consent. Most of the remains the Post found were collected in the early 1900s under the direction of anthropologist Alice Dilka, or whatever the hell this nigga name is, who sought to advance his now debunked theories that white people were superior to people of color. His theories have been debunked. We are the indigenous people of America. Gone.
Get in here, man. Get in here. Y'all thought y'all was gonna leave me out in this conversation called Baby Follows the Belly Law. Well, I always gotta have my perspectives in this. This is why it's called All Secrets Revealed, right? But you see Black Indian, see Miss Lady, right? You see the belly law, right? Margaret, right? Freedom suit, right? Enslaving a black indigenous family, right? The belly law, right? So this is a court case in 1836, right? Where they tried to change her status to black and colored, right? But her grandmama was a Natchez Indian. The grandmother was a Natchez Indian, and they tried to change her and call her Negro, black and colored. You know them terms, right? This is why Walter Plecker had to change the grandmama status. So if you call her Negro and colored, then we call Negro and colored, even not indigenous. But I had to get, matter of fact, take a screenshot. Take a screenshot if you like. All right. So as me, All Secrets Revealed, had to give you a court case, and it was illegal, so we've never been in slavery, but they tried to. But Getty had to give my perspective on Baby Follows the Belly Law. And this is one of many cases with Margaret, you know. And this is why we standing on business. All Secrets Revealed. If you'd like to donate $1, really appreciate it.
Jobs, you are misclassified. The Public Salary Act, y'all can look that up. I'm not going to teach down that rabbit hole today. Look up the Public Salary Act or DM me. I can send you the PDF for it. The Public Salary Act says that you're not even defined as a person that's supposed to be taxed. You're not a politician. Only people that work for the federal government or live in Washington, D.C. have to pay taxes. Did y'all know that? Put that in the chat. If you knew that already, put it in the chat. If you didn't know it already, put it in the chat. Did y'all know that if y'all did not live in Washington, D.C., or if you're not a federal government employee, you are not taxable? Okay? If you didn't know that, now you guys know. Y'all been misclassified. Folks that have W-2 wage jobs, you are misclassified.
All right. So that's the last one right there. Let me go into my histories real quick. Let me pull this up. See, this popped up on me. And pulled up these codes. Where did these codes go? Tuesday, July 14. Where'd it go? I'll pull it. Okay, here we go. There we go. Definitions. There you go. Right there. That's what I want to look for right there. There we go. I think that's it. Hold on. All right. And then we have, just gonna open those up. Okay, so what she's talking about here, that was wages. Definitions. Okay, so right here. So let me take these down. Leave her up. All right, so all right, so what we got right here is the appreciate everybody that's gonna be here later. Shaq, what it do, man? Shaq, what it do? See you, brother. So, as we have right here what she was just saying, employee. For the purpose of this chapter, the term employee includes an officer, employee, or elected official of the United States. So she's not wrong. See, she's confirming what I said. She showed it. Right? An elected official of the United States, a state. So that includes all your state officials or any political subdivision thereof. So what we're going to do is we're going to look for examples of what a political subdivision will be. Examples, please. Boom. Let's search this. So what we have right here, we have a list of what they consider to be a political subdivision. Counties, cities, towns, villages, school districts, special purpose districts. Right, so that's your functions like water, parks, or sanitation. Your local education system, small communities or municipalities. We know what counties and cities are. So there we go. These are what you would consider to be political subdivisions. So in this definition here, that would be considered an employee. So any, right? So we know about the Civil Rights Act. And we're going to pull up, Lyndon B. Johnson's, all these things that are happening, what we deal with every day. What I mean by we, you know what I'm saying? I deal with we. So when we go in and we make our claims and those claims get pushed aside, these are violations of civil rights. And you have these employees. You have these employees that are actually contributing to that violation. And that's anybody that has a job working for any of those offices that was determined here. Anybody. If you're talking about any of these areas, this is state, federal, and any political subdivision, like I say, the Department of. county recorder's office, right? The county board of supervisors, any city department. They are employees. And as employees, they must do what? They must have a W-2. So I'm not dealing with too much of the common folk. We talking about these people that actually take their job extra serious and then want to act like the police and interrogate people when they're coming in trying to file important or even record important documents, especially pertaining to status and, reserving rights, or putting these employees that are at these levels of elected officials on notice for anything that might happen. Now, what does that mean in regards to you? Well, if you do work for any of these areas, any of these things that we're showing right here in C, then you are a W-2 employee, W-4, W-2 employee. You see what I'm saying? When you work for these, you are considered to be an employee under that status, and you usually need a W-4, W-2. All right. And all those things fall within the United States. Remember, 28 USC 3002. So we have 28 USC 3002. All right, we come down to 28 USC 3002. All right, so these are definitions. And we're gonna go into all these things. We're gonna spend the time on just this code alone so you understand what you're dealing with. And we're gonna look up other definitions of the United States in other codes, because this is not the only one. People always think it's just this one, but this is what you're dealing with in regards to Title 26. So you got 14 state means, right? Then you have 15 United States mean a federal corporation, an agency, department, commission, board, or other entity. These are your political subdivisions. All right. And then you also have this instrumentality of the United States. Well, what is the instrumentality? Well, let's see. Let's see what instrumentality is. All right. So what does that mean? An agency, subsidiary branch as of a government by means of which functions or policies are carried out. Quality or condition of being instrumental, that which is instrumental, anything used as a means, medium, agency. So there you go. Exactly what I was looking for. So this instrumentality, B and C, pretty much run concurrent. But obviously it could be some other form of instrumentality. Now, this is for those that, participate in the United States on occasion, especially to do business, trade, or otherwise. You will be functioning under this definition of the United States here. All right. But like I said, we're going to go into some different codes that deal with the United States and talk about that and do some compare and contrast. How does that measure up? What jurisdiction is it? How does it relate? And how does it differ? Now, when we come back over here, Let me get this out of here. All right, so we're dealing with employer. So if we have employee, these are employees. Who are they employees for? So it's the person for whom an individual performs or performed any service. So if I walk into, just right along with me real quick on this. If I walk into the recorder's office, right, and I want to record some instrument regarding real property or real estate or land. As soon as I walk in there, I'm the employer because I'm coming in to get a service. And immediately, that entity and all of the people within that are my employees. As soon as I come in there and I said, I need this recorded. And as soon as they deny me a recording based on what I provided, because anything that deals with real property of any sort must be recorded. Now you're dealing with, you got civil matters, and most of the stuff they do is civil. We say, well, we will reject this because there's no rules that says that we must record this. Well, I'm recording something in regards to my land, my real estate, my real property. You must file on demand. That denial of this recording is a violation of my civil rights. You see? You are not to read my documents at all. I'm telling you, file on demand. Only thing you're looking for is for what real property is this being filed. Now, under the circumstances, you say, well, it doesn't fall within the guidelines. Well, what are the guidelines that you're going by? Because people constantly, attorney firms, constantly in these so-called, what do they call them? Foreclosure companies or non-judicial foreclosure companies file these instruments using fake title companies. And these things actually go through. These things are being recorded and filed. You see what I'm saying? With no kickback. You see what I'm saying? No questions. Now, if the county is recorder's office, which is a political subdivision that falls within an employee, that means that they have some type of personal financial interest in the matter for not recording something that will actually give public notice that, you know, this is being secured this way. So just giving an example, because we're staying in the realm of mortgages, foreclosures, eminent domain, because that's very important. All right. Now, now this right here is more definitions. Title 26 is considered to be the Internal Revenue Code, dealing with taxation, employment, labor, so on and so forth. Okay, so we have this definition of what a person is. I'm going to show this a bunch of times because people think a person is outside of what the definition is. People be making up their own definitions, including things that it's not. A person is an individual, trust, estate, partnership, association, company, or corporation. That's what a person is. They say, well, an individual is a man or a woman. No, it's not. An individual is a sole proprietorship. All right. Or as they also call a corporate soul. Okay. Now, fiduciary means a guardian, trustee, executor, administrator, receiver, conservator of any person acting in fiduciary capacity for any person. The term United States, when used in the geographical sense, includes only the states and the District of Columbia. State shall be construed to include the District of Columbia, where such construction is necessary to carry out provisions of this title. So it all functions within the District of Columbia. All right. So we must know who the players are, where they're at, what they have going on. And know when you're walking into these buildings and you're doing what you need to do, the first thing that always is to be known is that they work for you. The only question you should be asking me is, how is your day going? And how may I help you? If I'm coming into that building, I'm coming in with a focus, with an intent to do something. That's why I'm in that building. And I'm not coming in there to blow something up. I'm coming in there to get something done for me and my benefit. Because they're all benefits and privileges working within the United States. And all that is tied into rights. My right is to have this benefit and privilege that you guys put into place, or we put into place. So you don't scrutinize my documents. You don't look at them. You don't ask me any questions about this, that, and the other. File it. If you don't file it, you're fired. Move out and give me somebody else. You can't fire me. Yes, I can. Yes, I can. You are an employee. Well, I'm not your employee. Yes, you are. You are a public servant. You are a public employee, not a private employee. All of these definitions that I showed in 3002 are public facilities. And that is what the 64, 65, 66, and the 68 Civil Rights Acts was about, to expand on what was actually done 100 years prior. Since you were so adamant about bringing us in, because everybody that was fighting for the civil rights kind of had some shade like mine. So if you're coming in, well, excuse me, since you wanted us in so bad, doing all this little sneaky stuff, all these acts and these plenary actions, and you got some people to work with you, look like me, in order to get us in, all righty then. Put these things in place. Make sure when we walk up in here, you're not violating. And no, I do not need an attorney to get this done. I can do it myself. I can write it on a napkin. Doesn't have to be in any other form that it needs to be. I can handwrite the whole thing and make sure that it's right. not the way you want me to do it. It's done the way I want it to be done. All you need to know is the identifying location that deals with real property, because anything filed outside of real property in the records, in the land records, the county recorder's office, the deed, the records, the deed records, the recording of deeds, whatever it is in each state, you must file it. If anybody else has a problem because it then becomes public notice, then they must come in and contest it and file something against it. Because these things are for the purpose of either clouding title or making sure that title is secured and it's clear who the owner is, how the owner is to be addressed, and any other issues that might be. But the county recorder's office constantly is filing documents that's clouding title, encumbering title with no claim. And they're allowing corporations to do it. Let me give you an example. We were trying to file an affidavit in the recorder's office. They wouldn't file it. They said, there's no law that says, I showed them the law. They said, you telling me, where does it say what you're talking about here? Oh, well, I can't disclose that to you. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Provide me the information. This code says specifically that an affidavit can't be filed in here. It doesn't say that it only could be this affidavit or that affidavit. That type of affidavit dealing with some outside stuff that we don't, you know what I'm saying? That's not an everyday thing. The only thing you can file is an affidavit of death and some other affidavit of something that's dealing with some estate. No. Affidavits can be recorded, but if you don't file an affidavit or you don't allow an affidavit, that means you're not operating in common law. You're operating in just some civil situation. You won't take an affidavit. That means that you have something to do with that. You've been instructed not to file it. Now, prior to that, the county assessor said, yeah, you can file an affidavit there. I said, here's the affidavit. This is what I need to file. Is it all right? They was like, yeah, you should go ahead and go down there. I said, well, sound like I've dealt with this before. I don't think they're going to file it. And he says, well, they're supposed to. But yeah, now let me get off that. So I thought that was a pretty interesting video that the sister did right there. Let me see who else up in there. What's going on, J-Dub? J-Dub, know your business. What's happening? Gable or Gobble 255. Yeah, appreciate you. Gobble, Gable 255. He said you have a great and informative show. Oh yeah, it's the only way I know how to function. You know, appreciate you getting something out of it. Now I'm gonna go over to these other tabs over here. These tabs over here. Which one I want to go with first? Let's go from right to left. Let's start this real quick. All right. I could turn the video. Let me turn my camera off on this one.
If you were born between 1933 and 1975, you were bonded for $630,000 and insured for $1 million.
This is crazy. I played this video. I've had this in my archives for a long time. I actually got the actual video. And I played this video, and everybody's been clipping this thing since I played it. Yeah. Well, doing good things, y'all. We're doing good things.
If you were born after 1975, you were bonded for 1 million and insured for 2. We were bonded for $1 million. If you were born,
see, they did that no justice. They did this no justice at all. See, they just throw that out there. See, that's kind of like bait. Get you to keep looking and looking and looking and looking. That's just bait. Now, I'm gonna make a quick remark on this. Look at it this way. Prior to 1918, the United States of America worked specifically off the treaties. You see what I'm saying? Treaties. You see? And and the substance of everything was gold and silver. That's what you get from the Coinage Act, right? You had the Coinage Act or the Mint Act. You got the Mint Act, Coinage Act. And in the Coinage Act, it tells you what a fixed weight, it tells you what a dollar is. It tells you a dollar is a fixed weight of gold and a fixed weight of silver. Then it gives the actual weight. If you look at the dollar bill, what people consider the dollar bill today is actually a note. It's called a Federal Reserve note, meaning that note, which is legal tender for all debts, public and private, right? So it's legal tender for all debts, public and private. That legal tender says at the top, Federal Reserve note, and that means that note is issued by the Federal Reserve, which they also call the Fed. So what came during that time too as well, but it came in the late 1800s, was called the Negotiable Instruments Act, the Bills of Exchange Act. And these bills of exchange is where they started utilizing a lot of fiat currency. And these fiat currencies were in competition with the constitutional form of money, or the treaty approved form of money that the United States had to utilize for payment. So if you went to go buy a loaf of bread, a pair of pants, you paid in gold or you paid in silver. Now, initially, and I explained this before, and I'll be brief about it, is that what started happening is these banks, these holding tanks, these so-called banks started popping up in certain areas. And what they were doing was they operated as security deposit boxes, safe deposit boxes, meaning that you don't have to carry your gold around. You can bring your gold here so you don't risk being robbed, and we will give you a receipt, and you can take that receipt to the grocery store and go buy your bread. You can go take it over here to the convenience store and go buy your pair of pants. And then the grocery store will come back to us and say, hey, we have these receipts here, or these coupons, or these notes, and we're here to redeem them at this location, because they'll know exactly what bank to go to. We'll just use the word bank. I don't know if they was called banks then. So they took them there, and then they was able to get their gold. The bank would then accept the coupon, and I don't know what they will do with it after that, but they will have it. You see? Now, once these negotiable instruments came in, everything had to be insured, because these groups of people were used to admiralty and maritime law, right? It was used to being on dealing with the law of the sea, mainly because when they came over here, they only operated in a certain location, most time by the water or at ports off the river that led you out to the main sea or ocean to get somewhere else. So that's how they function. Boats weren't always that great. Sometimes they'll smash, they might lose somebody. So everybody then had to be insured. So this is where these insurance policies came in, and basically they just started using all of these instruments as money. You know, using it as money, using it as collateral, using it as any other form of security, instrument, so on and so forth. So these things just started playing around. This is where you get the Lloyds of London from, where these guys are issuing out bonds. So you come into this world, I come into this world, they issue a bond. But first, what they need is they need an application, right? They need a letter of credit. They need somebody to substantiate that, endorse it. And this is where the mother and father comes in, right? But the mothers always seem to be the informant. Once that happens, they actually take that and then they create a certificate of title. That certificate of title, what you will see is a certificate of live birth. That certificate of live birth is actually identical as you see for your certificate of title for your automobile. They then monetize it, right, on futures. Anybody that's in the stock or whatever, they understand what futures mean. Futures. In the futures, they actually can hypothecate on that. So we deal with a 30-year mortgage or 30 years, when they get to the age of majority of 21 years, how much do you think, based on the size and shape of this vessel that's called a baby, what do you think they'll be able to produce? And they put that in there. And then take it over time. You actually can find that to be true if I gave you the location to look for it, which I'm not. But I've done it before. So if you was paying attention, you know where to go. Now, that then becomes a sort of a bond, right? So if we go look up what a bond is, let's go look up what a bond is real quick. We go look up what a bond is. I only got that right there. Let's go. Where am I? Okay, let's go here. There's Black's Law. Let's go to bond. I know you guys don't see it because I'm not sharing my whole entire screen. Just going to read it to you. So that way I ain't got to jump around. All right. So, what is a bond? Where'd you go? Where'd you go? All right. So, a bond is a certificate or evidence of a debt. A debt on which interest is paid. A deed whereby the obligor obliges himself, his heirs, executors, and administrators to pay a certain sum of money to another at a day appointed. A mere promise to pay. A specialty or sealed instrument, and not merely a written instrument. A written obligation. So we have initially a certificate or evidence of a debt. And if you have a birth certificate, or if you have a certificate of live birth, then you know exactly what that means. It is a bond. Now, don't let nobody else tell you. What's going on, big dog? Yeah, I had to go early today, big dog. I thought you had went early, but I had to because I got an appointment at 2. So I had to get this out the way. It's Thursday. So what we're dealing with right here is what? Do not, and I repeat, do not let your fooling eyes fool you. It is what it is, and the definition is what the definition is. Do not make it something that it's not. That's how you confuse a situation, and then this is where fear comes in. Once you get all confused, you get flustered, but it is what it is. So now, them actually hypothecating on you being born, now that was something new to me. And I found when I heard that, I was like, man, that's crazy. Just like everybody said, that's crazy. All right, let me show you. Okay, I looked and I said, oh, well. Okay, my first question is, where mine's at? Where mine's at? I do see that they actually did everything I saw in the definition. They are paying interest on that. Right? It's like a savings account, right? Savings bond or whatever you might have, you know what I'm saying? They are paying interest on it. And it matures over 30 years. Just like a mortgage. Now, this hypothecation of things, over time, hypothecation just means that they're just guesstimating on what it might be based on, certain people go with this wild thing based on, what's your size at birth, how many inches are you, how much you weigh, how you could be established, you know what I'm saying? They'll see if you're strong, young baby. That's conspiracy theory to me. I don't believe in all that. But look, outside of that, you look at what this guy was saying here, right? You look at what this guy is saying right here. Where'd it go? Boom, boom. Oh yeah, we start over here. So he's saying, what is your worth to the government? What is your worth to the government? It's not technically is not what your worth to the government is. I don't think so. I don't know if your worth to the government, but everything is considered to be collateral. But yeah, see videos like this. Let's get to the next one.
Using a negotiable instrument. Well, duh, you can pay using a negotiable instrument because a fucking Federal Reserve note is a goddamn negotiable instrument. Everything.
Damn. This guy's wild.
Thing is a negotiable instrument. Everything is a negotiable instrument. A mortgage note is a negotiable instrument. A traffic ticket is a negotiable instrument. A fucking court judgment is a negotiable instrument.
Wouldn't a traffic ticket be more of a citation than a negotiable instrument, though?
No, if they're unconditionally ordering you to pay, remember, pay and performance mean the same thing. So if they're unconditionally ordering you to perform, which means to be at a certain courthouse at a certain date and time, it's still a negotiable instrument. Payment and performance mean the same thing. An unconditional order to pay or an unconditional order to perform are both drafts.
Okay.
And if you think about it, everything under the sun, moon, and stars is either an unconditional promise or order to pay. Everything is. Or perform.
Okay, that's enough of that. Okay, you guys get that? I want to do the whole 2 minutes, 29 seconds. But that pretty much is what I'm talking about right there. Now, I know this stuff is kind of outlandish. I mean, but it's been set up that way. International commerce has been going on for thousands of years, if not hundreds of thousands of years, if not millions of years. Who knows? Who knows what's been going on? Somebody had to come up with an idea in order to move the paper around and be able to make sure you got accounting. And, you know, it's a lot into this stuff, man. It's real intricate. But that's something that we don't need to be concerned about. We don't need to be concerned about all the ins and outs. Oh, we need to know what the rules are. You know what the rules are. You know they are to be following the rules. So when they do invite you, in, listen closely, when they invite you, come and visit on a matter that you or something like you has been involved in. The key thing to do is make sure that you are visiting, that you are a non-combatant, that you are there to get full clarity on what's going on. And you need to want to make sure that they translate that. You see what I'm saying? Because if you go in there knowing what you're talking about, you're done. Not going to work out for you. You ask questions. You make sure you get a clear understanding. And based on the last two that I showed and other things that I have explained, even going back to the employee, Title 26, this is for them. It's not for you, it's for them. If they actually do have a bond, which is a certificate of live birth or anything of that nature, and they're actually paying interest on it, and the United States is obligated or liable for all debts dollar for dollar, and you don't have any constitutional way of paying any money or international or any law of the land type money that you would consider to be true in your mind, then who's going to pay for it? See, when people go, yeah, I'm going to go into my wallet. Yep. Yeah, I got some money. Yeah, I got money for you. Okay. Yeah, you got bank account? Yeah. All right, well, here, this is what you're going to be paying. Need you to go over there to that window, go get that receipt, and I need you to pay that for me. Cool. And people walk out thinking they won. Shit, all I got it out here. Man, all I had to pay was $150 for this, man. I'm good. But nevertheless,
projector on. Everyone is taught how to sign. Almost nobody is taught what a signature means. Every time you place your name on a commercial document, you're making representations. You're acknowledging terms. You're accepting obligations. That's why understanding what you're signing matters. Now here's something many people eventually come across and study.
See? I know you think I'll be doing this on purpose. I don't do this on purpose. I haven't listened to this yet. But see, he's saying exactly what I'm saying. I understand what you're signing.
In the Uniform Commercial Code, the concept of a qualified reservation of rights under UCC 1-308. People often ask, why do some people write without prejudice, UCC 1-308, next to their signature? The answer starts with understanding what the statute actually addresses. It concerns the reservation of certain rights in specific commercial situations. It does not automatically erase contracts, eliminate debts, or invalidate agreements simply because those words are written next to your signature. The bigger lesson is this: stop signing blindly.
Now, let's come over here. Let me show you guys something real quick. This is the Uniform Commercial Code. This is Article 3. See what this is? Negotiable instruments. Now, you say, well, what does the UCC got to do with anything? Well, it's on Law Cornell. You know what else is on Law Cornell? Title 26. Notes. Let's go to Title 26. Okay. Title 26, Internal Revenue Code. This is on Law Cornell. If it ain't on Law Cornell, it ain't real. So I just want to get that to you real quick, like. Make sure that I'm showing my screen. Here's what UCC Article 3 negotiable instruments. Now let's go to the Uniform Commercial Code. Okay. So we go to Uniform Commercial Code. Got copyright, all this stuff been copywritten by the American Law Institute, National Conference of Commissioners on Uniform State Laws. Okay. Here we go. Negotiable instruments. Let's go here to definitions. All right. Now, let's come on down here real quick. We're going to go here to these definitions so you guys can understand what I'm talking about here. 9-102. Okay, so we go down here. 9 dash, I'm sorry. Let me come back here to, let me back it on up. Okay, so Article 9 deals with secured transactions. Secured transactions. We always must start at definitions. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to come down here and we're going to keep going on here. Boom. Now, you guys see this right here? This says certificate of title. Everybody has a car. Take out of your mind the birth certificate. Let's not worry about the certificate of live birth right now. I know everybody not really hearing me on that. Let's go to your certificate of title you got for your car. What does this mean? What is a certificate of title? Eesh. Okay, let's drop it down just a little bit more. Means a certificate of title with respect to which a statute provides for the security interest in question to be indicated on the certificate as a condition or result of the security interest obtaining priority over the rights of a lien creditor with respect to the collateral. The term includes another record maintained as an alternative to a certificate of title by the governmental unit. The term includes another record maintained as an alternative to a certificate of title by the governmental unit that issues certificates of title if a statute permits the security interest. Now, what is a lien creditor? Let's go to a lien creditor. Where you at? Where you at? They ain't doing that for me. All right, so let's come down here to collateral. What is collateral? Okay, so collateral means the property subject to a security interest or ag lien. Wait a minute. This is dealing with secure transaction. Now, agriculture lien, the term includes proceeds, accounts, chattel paper, payment tangibles, promissory notes. Commercial tort claim. All right, just want to show you that real quick. Let's see what a lien creditor is. So we just understand what a lien creditor means. So right here, a lien creditor means a creditor that has acquired a lien on the property involved by attachment, levy, or the like. A trustee in bankruptcy. An assignment for benefit of creditors. Now, I don't know if anybody knows this, but the United States Attorney's Office are considered to be the trustees in bankruptcy. I don't know if you guys know that. The United States Attorney's Office, not the Attorney General Office. The U.S. Attorney's Office. The U.S. Attorney's Office controls the trustee department in bankruptcy. So when you file in bankruptcy, just know that these things are under the supervision of the United States Attorney's Office. Okay. And this also has a receiver in equity from the time of appointment. The receiver in equity. So now you guys see that the certificate of title is governed under Article 9 of the Uniform Commercial Code. It's not governed by any other thing but the Uniform Commercial Code. Everything that they're operating by is within the Uniform Commercial Code. Your civil and criminal law, what they call civil and criminal law, happens in regards to the public officials as employees, servants of the people, and the United States of America as duties and obligations. Those civil and criminal codes are things that they are to be penalized under if they do not follow the Uniform Commercial Code by the T, right? So you got the Uniform Commercial Code, you got consumer law, you got consumer law, contract law. Consumer law and contract law kind of run parallel. I say kind of, because I'm not really prepared to really explain it, but they kind of run parallel. Because in consumer law, you deal with business and professional, business, professions, ethics. You're dealing with disclosure, right? You're dealing with representation. You're dealing with servicing. You're dealing with brokering. All these things come into play when you're signing the contract. But if you look up the definition of application, if you're looking up the definition of application, right? If you look up the definition of application and we go to our definitions, right? You won't see it, but you will see an applicant. And everybody has been an applicant. And yeah, I've shown this before, but we always got new people in here. An applicant means a person whose request, for whose account a letter of credit is issued, or for whose account a letter of credit is issued. So if an applicant is one that as whose request or whose account a letter of credit is issued, then what is an application? A letter of credit, a note. Okay. Now, if you want to talk about on whose account, what is an account? Right. So what is it? What's an account? Right. So what is an account? Except as used in account for means a right to payment of a monetary obligation. A right to payment, not right to pay. It's a right to payment of a monetary obligation. So who's that obligation on? Is the obligation on you or is the obligation on them? Because how are you to go get the house, the car, the utilities turned on for any other matter? Right? It has to be paid. Who's paying for it? They're paying for it or you're paying for it? You're paying for it. But what you're doing is you're endorsing an instrument over to them based off an account that has already been established, right? Through certificate of title, through that security interest. You see where I'm going with this? Connect the dots. Now, how did that happen? Well, they gave me an application. I had to fill it out. So then with that application, that made me an applicant. At that applicant, right, there's a letter of credit to be issued. Once that's done, they had to get some authorization in order to transfer those funds electronically from one and put it on their books in order for you to get the thing. We're not talking about what happens after that, because there's a whole thing that happens after that. This is where the consumer part comes in. As a consumer, that consumer is connected to civil rights, right? As a consumer, Title 15, Title 8, no, Title 15, Title 18, Title 42. Because full disclosure must be given by the servicer. So that way you can make a conscious and competent decision on what you're going to do moving forward. But these instruments that you're doing in these transactions are governed by the Uniform Commercial Code. That is it. You also have, I cannot forget, Title 12. You got Title 12, you got Title 31. You have a lot of different ones that go within it as, you know what I'm saying? That's dealing with governing, right? Governing regulations, enforcement of these employees and their instrumentalities, right? So the bank of, the National Bank, the credit union, these aren't really technically governmental entities, right? Or sub-governmental entities. They're not technically. But they do get funding through the FDIC and through the Federal Reserve. So technically, if they're connecting themselves to Washington, D.C. in some matter, then they do have a fiduciary duty. You see what I'm saying? So now you have a basic understanding of what these laws are and what these codes are to be, state-wise and federal-wise. These are to be followed by them, not you. As soon as they get any funding from the United States, guess what we talk about? Instrumentality, right? This is why you got sam.gov. Sam.gov, you can be a contractor with the government. You can get funds, you get all kind of stuff to exercise whatever you want to do in any field. You can get funding from the government. And that is sam.gov. That's sam.gov. So if you got a company and you thinking about doing some things, best thing to do is register with SAM. Not just get a Duns and Bradstreet number, get a SAM number. Now, where was I going with this? Account. Okay. So when we get into for property, okay, so let's continue. So it says whether or not earned by performance for property that has been or is to be sold, leased, licensed, assigned, or otherwise disposed of, for services rendered or to be rendered, for a policy of insurance issued or to be issued, for a secondary obligation incurred or to be incurred, for energy provided or to be provided. That's an account. Right? 2, key, services rendered or to be rendered. So people say, well, you paid them for the services they provided. Well, they put in a service fee. But that service fee is already within the money that they actually went to the window to get the funds that you issued your letter of credit on. So that's everything is in that application. Percentage, everything they putting in that. Boom. There you go. Everything that's in there, the interest, the principal, all the other dealings is your money. That's for you. You have a principal amount to pay for the house. You got interest payments that is going to be accruing over a 30-year period of time, just like I showed in the certificate of title. Everything that pretty much lines up. Okay? All of that is yours. And what they're doing is, as they're servicing these accounts, right? As they're servicing these accounts, they're doing their job and they are getting the fee off of these things over time. But the servicing is actually coming from the government, not you. You've already issued the letter of credit with all the terms and conditions involved. All right. Now, definitions. My bad. Let's go back to Article 3. Definitions. First thing you're going to see is acceptor. Acceptor means a drawee who has accepted a draft. What is a draft? They don't have it in here. So what is a drawee? Drawee means a person ordered in a draft to make payment. Okay. Drawer means a person who signs or is identified in a draft as a person ordering payment. So are you the drawee or are you the drawer? Or are you both? Because who signs? The drawer, right? The drawer, the maker. So, right. So you got maker means a person who signs or is identified note as a person undertaking to pay. So this is why you come back to drawee means a person ordering the draft to make payment. So you're the drawer and the drawee, the maker, the owner, plus O controller. Consumer transaction. Here you go. Didn't I tell you? UCC. Consumer transaction means a transaction which an individual incurs an obligation primarily for personal, family, or household purposes. This is the consumer aspect of it. If it's a consumer transaction, it is for this purpose only. The consumer account, same thing. Personal, family, or household purposes. This is what you would consider to be a consumer transaction. Also, they call it a consumer credit installment transaction. All right, now give you this last thing here. Spend too much time on it. USC 408, and I showed you this before. We're talking about accounts here. Talking about accounts here. This is 7A. Right here. Got it? All righty then. So we got it. All right. Now, take a quick look here. All right. So where we at here? Let's go here. I'm going to play this again. I'm going to play this more so we can get this here. These codes. Man, let's go. Hold on. Let me do this real quick. Let me stop mine. Let me get here.
I think I found the door they never told us to look for. See, everybody was arguing about names and everybody was arguing about labels. But I stopped arguing and started reading. And what I discovered changed my whole approach. The key was never just identity. The key was records. The key was procedure. The key was knowing where the doors actually are. Title 25 CFR, Indian Affairs. You have trust records, restricted lands, probate, recognition, and administrative history. They build entire systems around records. So why were we never taught how to find ours? Title 25 CFR Part 83 is acknowledgement. Title 25 CFR Part 15 is Indian estate probate. Parts 150 through 179 is land and title records. And Part 151 is land into trust. This isn't about claiming something. This is about researching, documenting, and rebuilding what was lost. Because if history was written through records, then restoration starts through records. Your ancestors left footprints, names, land, documents, communities, and family lines. The mission now is simple. Find the record, preserve the record, and continue the legacy. The door was never locked. Most of us were just never shown where the key was. I think I found the door they never told us to look for. See, everybody was arguing about names and everybody was arguing about labels. But I stopped arguing and started reading.
Okay, so we got that. Now, want to go over here to this because I want to take a look into this real quick.
This is breaking news from the Supreme Court. They just ruled to change the power of the president. The Supreme Court just overturned Humphrey's executor. It's a 90-year-old ruling that allowed Congress to build agencies inside of the executive branch that the president didn't control.
Now, hold on. Let me get rid of some of this. Get rid of some of this. All right. So we got the Humphreys. And let me put the link in there. Y'all come up now. Y'all want to come up. This I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna play that video after this. I'm gonna play the oh, okay. You got it. You got it. What's up, Iceberg? What's going on with you, sis? Now your business, you got it. You said, damn, letter of credit just clicked. Yeah. Big dog Philly, big dog Philly, big dog Philly. Yeah, man. Yeah, so I put the link in there. Y'all come up. All I'm doing is about to do this. Wanted to get something rolling because, like I said, I'm kind of strapped for time. So, but we doing all right for right now. Well, so let's go over here. This Humphreys, right? This Humphreys. What she call it? The Humphreys what? She called it a Humphreys. Oh, let's.
This is breaking news from the Supreme Court. They just ruled to change. This is breaking news from the Supreme Court. They just ruled to change the power of the president. The Supreme Court just overturned Humphrey's executor.
Okay, Humphrey's executor. All right. So, 1935 Supreme Court case that ruled. Okay, here we go. Got to adjust it on here. Congress can limit the president's power to remove certain government officials, especially those in independent agencies like the Federal Trade Commission. Now, this is along the lines of the Chevron. All right, so it said, yep, just what she says. They refer to instances of inefficiency, neglect of duty, or malfeasance in office. See, and that's the whole thing about employees. See, they know they can get away with this. So now what I'm hearing is something to the effect of, okay, if they not, you know what I'm saying, J-Dub, if you listening, if they not paying attention to this right here and they're going to continue to act a certain way, then Congress has no control. Now I see why Congress has been acting the damn fool. Because they already know that the executive office now has control of these places now again. See, this is 1935. Right? This is 1935. This is right after HJR 192. This is after the executive order. It's right after that. That's what I'm saying. So, all right, coming together. Now, let's see what this says here. And this is the whole issue. This is why we've been having issues. They needed this. And see, in the Supreme Court, we're going to have to go through this right here. Yep, found it right here. Number 4, the authority of Congress in creating quasi-legislative or quasi-judicial agencies to require them to act in discharge of their duties independently of executive control cannot well be doubted. And that authority includes an appropriate incident, power to fix the period during which they shall continue in office and forbid their removal except for cause in the meantime. See, that's what they were doing. All this time, this is what they've been doing. All of these, this is what I'm saying. All of these traffic courts, all these courts are quasi courts, quasi judicial, quasi legislative, even some quasi executive, because they're following some of these entities under this quasi label, so they can operate without any checks and balances, and they're immune, and they can go with full immunity, regardless of what they do. This is why these police officers are getting away with killing people. In regular traffic citation, commercial, which you could be commercial events, they're taking people out, and they're getting away with it under this quasi. Nevertheless, let's move on from there. Now, let's go over to the end of the Chevron deference, right? So this is it. So this is the summary. So you guys got to pay attention. This is very important, especially when you're dealing with law and order. You're dealing with these agencies. It says local, bright, and relentless. Like, for instance, this right here, and I'll be forgetting to use this, because this right here is an example of the county recorder's office saying that we're not filing that. Well, there's no rules that we're bound by that makes us has to file this if we want. Right? This is that Chevron deference. Okay? They make up their own rules, pretty much in a nutshell. They make up their own rules how it goes to fit them. And then when they come into court, they can, and you try to sue them, you say, well, this is what happened. They refuse, or they say, well, there's nothing in our rules say that we have to file this. Okay, so it says local, bright, and relentless represent a seismic shift in the level of deference afforded to administrative agency interpretations that has applied to nearly 40 years. No longer are courts required to defer to agency interpretation of ambiguous statutes. Rather, courts are now instructed to utilize normal rules of statutory interpretation to determine the ambiguity themselves. Normal rules of statutory interpretation to determine the ambiguity themselves. So now you see that this is something that has not been addressed either in the courts, because they're still operating under this Chevron deference, under this Chevron doctrine, I should say. The deference is something different, but you're talking about the Chevron doctrine. They're operating under the Chevron doctrine still. They're still deferring to the agencies. If you're allowing an attorney to come into court, provide a declaration on prima facie evidence and trying to execute a debt collection or some type of judgment from the court without bringing any real party of interest with firsthand knowledge. Like I said, so if you're allowing that to take place, then you're still operating from the Chevron doctrine. And that means that the judge is quasi, the court is quasi, the clerk is quasi, the attorneys are the attorneys that they're operating as foreign agents. You see what I'm saying? So that's what it's coming by. It's coming by all those different angles. Anybody bringing you in under any of these type of statutes and codes, these quasi type things, they're operating from this doctrine right here. Okay, so it says the Supreme Court did recognize that in certain situations, agency deference may still be warranted, like when Congress explicitly requires it, and also recognize that lesser forms of agency deference, like Skidmore deference, may still be appropriate in certain circumstances. Okay. So, and this is what they've been doing. This has been more visual and apparent in foreclosures, in the taking of people's houses, cars, taking people traffic, taking people to jail, impounding their cars, right? Them being able to trespass on your land and knock on your door. All that's running through the Chevron doctrine, and all this stuff, as you're seeing, is being operated through Congress. And this is where we're going at right here. This is why I want to look up that situation. So now we got that too as well. Let me see. All right, so let's go back to the system.
It's a 90-year-old ruling that allowed Congress to build agencies inside of the executive branch that the president didn't control. See, in 1930, Franklin Roosevelt came up with a New Deal, which massively expanded the federal
There we go. New Deal. She with me. She with me.
government. And Congress started building agencies, very powerful agencies to regulate the economy, the market, and the workplace. But here's the catch. They built them inside the executive branch and then told the president that he couldn't touch them. That's the Federal Trade Commission, Securities and Exchange Commission, the National Labor Relations Board, and a dozen more. They have trillions of dollars in regulatory power, but they're run by unelected bureaucrats and they're accountable to nobody that you voted for. That 1935 ruling is called Humphrey's Executor, and that made it official. And the president couldn't hire them. He couldn't fire them. They just operated on their own for 90 years. And this morning, the Supreme Court said that if an agency sits inside of the executive branch, then the president runs it. That's what the Constitution said. There's no more shadow governments, no more rogue agencies that don't answer to anybody. They answer to the president now, and the president answers to you, which is why the SAVE Act is the next step in us taking back our country.
Now, I don't know what the SAVE Act is. I haven't looked into it yet. But there you go. Now, I'm about to come over here because I want to play this. I was in the wrong spot yesterday when I was playing this guy's video. So what I want to do is I want to play this guy's video because this is dealing with what everybody calls a coon, Clarence Thomas. Now, one of y'all think he's a coon after this one.
Congress overruled Dred Scott. They did it first, denied citizenship to Clarence Thomas, with whom Justice Gorsuch joins. He says this court's decision in Dred Scott would have permanently denied citizenship to blacks as a subordinate and inferior class in 1857. Now, after the Civil War, the Reconstruction Congress overruled Dred Scott. They did it first with the Civil Rights Act of 1866, then again with the Citizenship Clause of the 14th Amendment. Both the Civil Rights Act and the Citizenship Clause guaranteed citizenship to persons born and domiciled in the U.S. regardless of their race. Neither, though, guaranteed citizenship to persons who were not domiciled in the United States. Clarence Thomas says, blacks were entitled to citizenship because they were Americans. They had no other homeland. They owed no allegiance to any foreign power, and they were subject to no other authority.
Okay, we start right there. Not subject to any other authority, but any other authority didn't happen until the Civil Rights Act. Any other authority, not until Civil Rights Act. Okay? Not till any other Civil Rights Act. I'm gonna let him finish. Then I'm gonna go to my PowerPoint.
They fought and bled in the same battles. They were gained and gloried in the same victories. And they were liable to be called upon to defend America in a time of war alongside every other citizen. They were Americans. These people who are coming in illegally are not. They haven't done any of this crap. They haven't fought and bled. They weren't brought here against their will. They didn't violate the law. They weren't.
Okay, so we'll get past that part, right? You said they weren't brought against their will. You see, there's still people that still subscribe to the slave narrative. But I've already shown that the people that came over here in 1492 and in up until 1619 came on their own. They sought refuge. They were kicked out. They were kicked out of where they came, where they really wasn't kicked out. They was given a choice. Hey, this is what we're doing now within that group of people. People migrated. They moved. They left. It wasn't kicked out. Technically, let me stop saying that. They was not kicked out. They left. And that was the vast Phoenician Empire that at that time they labeled the Moors, because that was a full confederation then of many different groups of people, nations, families, and everything else. But they all stem from one people at that time. And those are the Phoenicians. Except for the Aton-Yah people who were more indigenous. I think they say in that area, that location, were older than everybody. Maybe those could be the Etruscans. Who knows? But that left against, forced against their will. If you want to talk about that, if anything, you're going to be talking about the Moors, or these people that came from over there. These are that group of people that I showed who comprised the Moors, and it wasn't just one group; it was multiple groups of people. Multiple groups of people.
They did violate the law, but the African Americans did not. They were brought here against their will.
Land beats houses every single.
Knowing that ain't true. Not true at all. These African Americans, not true at all. Okay, there is no such thing as African Americans. They weren't African Americans at all, wasn't labeled African Americans. And you can look at all the slave codes, or what you would consider to be the Negro laws and all that type of stuff, and Christian codes. And really, that's what the slave codes were. Those were Christian codes. And that basically were Negroes. Negroes, mulattoes, mestizos, not African American.
Their will. They come in here on their own volition in violation of our laws. To compare them both to one another, like John Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett did, is to diminish the plight of the slaves and the history of Black Americans in America.
See, now he's giving his own conjecture on this. You saw what Thomas said, Justice Thomas said. He mentioned nothing of slavery. None. Zero. Zilch. He's talking about African Americans, slavery, brought here against their will, all that stuff. He didn't mention none of that. None of that.
To make a false equivalency between
just like you just did. You just made a false equivalency. Just like you did. False. False. False, false, and false again. Stay within the four corners, buddy. You're out of bounds.
Foreign invaders and the people in America. The Citizenship Clause thus guaranteed them the dignity and the glory of American citizenship, so as to ensure that they would never be treated again as second-class citizens.
You see? See what he said? He put in again. There is no again in there. It says will never be treated as second class under the law. Never. But why? Because we wasn't in there. Based on what he said prior to his opening, he said that they are American. Period. Did not fall under the Naturalization Act at all.
Clause thus guaranteed them the dignity and the glory of American citizenship, so as to ensure that they would never be treated again as second-class citizens. Now, and
it didn't say citizens. It says second class under the law. Look at this guy. He's reading it wrong. See, he's throwing his whole thing. He's an attorney. He knows what he's doing. He's already read this, so he's adding his things in there.
Same could not be said for the children of foreign temporary visitors. It's not the same bucket. Foreign temporary visitors were attached to their home country. They lacked similar bonds to this country. They would not be called upon in a time of war. Americans, consistent with the settler ethos, believed that citizens were the people who called a place home. And so accordingly, domicile, a person's legal home, played a key role in both state and federal citizenship.
National citizenship, dude. National citizenship. There's a difference. That means you're a national. See, he's butchering Justice Thomas's dissent on purpose. This is purposely being done. See, this is what I'm talking about, attorneys. Federal, they didn't say federal. That doesn't say federal. That says national. That means you're an American national. That means you're an American.
Person was a citizenship in a state where they had domicile. We decided that in 1859. When foreigners temporarily visited, their national character was unchanged. They're here temporarily. Such visitors were strangers. They weren't subjects. And so a person born here, but domiciled, living in a foreign land, was therefore considered as much a stranger to the country as was his father. So that is why when Dred Scott went to court, he argued that to be a citizen, it is only necessary that he should have domicile. After this court said that Scott was not a citizen simply because he was black, Republicans in Congress, such as Representative John Bingham and others, stated that a person was a citizen if he was born and domiciled here. Scott was a citizen in their view.
Okay, so he said here. No, it says the United States. The United States. He didn't say here. He said the United States, man. Why are you butchering this man's stuff? Oh, this is what you think he meant? Obviously. You're far off, buddy.
Scott, because he was born to Americans, not temporary sojourners.
He was born to Americans. See, the thing about Dred Scott's situation is a state matter. It started off as a state matter, not a federal. He took it to the what you would consider to be the federal level, based on him knowing of what his relationship is as an American. So that means he's not African. The same black here. But if we look at the old Dred Scott, I'm gonna see if we can find the word black. So we got Dred Scott. We got to look at the Chevron case, and we got to look at this Humphrey case. So we gotta check out what that means.
And as Frederick Douglass had put it, the freedmen sought citizenship not as aliens nor as exiles, but as Americans.
The freed men. Okay. So as we know, this being 1859, if I'm not mistaken, Dred Scott case. Let's see here. Let's take a quick look. Let's take a quick look here. Let's take a quick look here. There's a couple things I want to show before I'm done. So let me hold on, let me go entire screen. All right, let's go over here to, as I showed for current slide, yeah. So as I showed right here, this is your definition of American. Right, so it says, as a noun, initially referring to the indigenous copper-colored races, but also used for descendants of Europeans born in America. So he's either indigenous or he's a European. That's it. This is an 1828 Webster Dictionary. Indigenous, European. Indigenous, European. That's it. That's it. That's all. You can't go outside of that. You got to stay right there. Not African, buddy. Now, get into, hold on. Let me get in here. Let's go here. Let's go here. All right. Who are the Moors? Who are the Moors? We just go right down to the list. Right here. Says, this diversity is one of the defining characteristics of Moor civilization. Among those commonly identified as Moors were the indigenous Aton-Yah, or what they say Berber peoples. And I showed in the South Carolina Black codes, or whatever they called it, the Berbers were considered to be slaves. They say the ancient Berbers, and the ancient Berbers are the Aton-Yah. Slaves, Berbers, Arabs from the Levant, descendants of Phoenicians and Punic populations who had long been integrated into Northern African society, and I showed that in my American history little module. Romanized North Africans, Iberian converts to Islam, Jewish communities, people of mixed Mediterranean and African ancestries, whose identities reflected centuries of migration and interaction. So they had a lot of different people. Righteous. So we straight. Got that clear. Not African American, buddy. Nah. You see? He's talking a whole different language here. He's adding things in there. You can't get past the point of what he said in the beginning. No other homeland. No other homeland.
Neither, though, guaranteed citizenship to persons who were not domiciled in the United States. Clarence Thomas says, blacks were entitled to citizenship because they were Americans. They
Period. I was trying to find that. Yeah. Blacks were
had no other homeland.
Blacks were entitled to citizenship because they were Americans, had no other homeland. Do we need him to interpret that for us? No, I'm going to. It's evident right there. No need to interpret it. It says right there. We're Americans, no other homeland. We have the definition right here. What an American is. Copper colored races or European, indigenous or European. And they say copper colored races. That's it. That's all. Finito. Done. Now, based on the Dred Scott situation that he was talking about, we can go right here. We know that this dude was an indigenous copper-colored race, copper-colored man, or he was a European of some sort, either Huguenot, Moor, or Sephardim, or any of these other mixed groups, because they all was mixed in at that time. But it seems like they was all able to keep their native identity. Yep, I'm gonna play this again because I wanted to connect it to what this guy was saying, like I did yesterday. But I was in the wrong spot. Hold on. All right, yeah, let's blow that up a little bit. Come on, guy. Yeah.
Citizenship. If you were an American Indian, the Supreme Court held more than 100 years ago that American Indians.
American Indian. American comes first. American Indian. Indian is in Black's Law Dictionary, considered to be a tribal government, tribal organization by that identity. The Indian made it tribal, but Indian nevertheless. Okay? American comes first. Indian comes second. Make of that as you will, but it is an American.
We're not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States.
Oh, wow.
And
so if they're not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, so even 100 years prior to this, which is 2025, that's 1925, still not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. So what was Dred Scott requesting? Was Scott a name that connected him to the Scottish people? Was he connected to the Stuarts? Did he come from that bloodline? Then that means he would be considered to be a Moor, Sephardic, or whatever. He might be coming from that line because he's operating within the United States. And he's coming to the United States for redress prior to the Civil War. This is prior to the Civil War and the Emancipation Proclamation in the 1866, 67, 68 Civil Rights Act, whichever one it was. So if that's the case, then it has nothing to do with what this guy is talking about in his reading of the Dissent. Now, what I could say against Justice Thomas is the fact that he has manipulated this information as well, using the term black. Using some of these terms And he's talking about American citizenship, because if you're talking about real American citizenship, you're not talking about the United States. You're talking about the United States. You're talking about United States citizenship, which labels you a person. You're talking about persons. So as he says right here, both Civil Rights Act and the Citizenship Clause guarantees citizenship to persons born and domiciled in the United States, regardless of their race. See, regardless in the United States. See, Justice Thomas is bringing this American thing in here like it has something to do with the United States. It does not. You're a United States citizen, a United States national could be as well, but that's what you are. And in order to be a United States national, you must be considered to be a landowner, white, free, and clear. You know what I'm saying? And not subject to, any type of peonage. You no longer can be considered a peon in that realm. Right? So in this, blacks, because they were blacks, he should have it in quotes, were entitled to citizenship. So you're talking about citizenship of the United States because they were Americans. So that means what? Does that mean entitled to citizenship? That means that our citizenship is grandfathered in. That means we can come in and out the United States as we please and give us what we need to get. And we out. Okay, I can go with that. We don't need to be naturalized. We don't need to swear allegiance as long as we coming in and out. We can utilize the United States citizenship in order to do business. Let's say we want to come in and work or whatever, make some extra money. I'm just throwing that out there. But the next sentence says they had no other homeland. So if you have no other homeland, that means the land that you're on is your home. Only home. And owed no allegiance to any foreign power. And were subject to no other authority, including in the United States, because previously he said blacks were entitled to citizenship. Blacks were entitled to citizenship because they were Americans. Now let's break down this sentence real quick. Blacks, Americans, are they the same? It's a question. Are they the same? Think about it.
Land. They owed.
Blacks were entitled to citizenship because of what? Because classifications was changed, adjusted, added. Because they're not Indians right here. There's no Indian talk in here. Because Justice Thomas knows he can't have an Indian talk because he already knew during that time Indians were not ever subject to the jurisdiction. But blacks are. Because blacks is what created the civil rights adjustment in the 20th century. You guys with me? And gals? Now, once you lock that in, blacks in this sentence and Americans are two different things. So basically what he could say, blacks, quote unquote, were entitled to citizenship because they were already Americans. Because they had no other homeland and owed no allegiance to any foreign power. The foreign part of it, you could say, yeah, the indigenous nations was foreign to the United States, but they had a treaty. They were allies. So if some Indians want to come over and say, you know what, we'll take this little black thing real quick, just as long as we make sure we got our equal protection and we still have our traditions that we can keep. No problem. And as the following sentence will say, they fought and bled in the same battles. Yeah, we came over and we battled together. Why? Because we were allies. We had a treaty. We had a peace and friendship treaty, which made us allies against all enemies, foreign and domestic. We police ours, you police yours. If anybody crosses that, we'll bring them to you. Or if you won't, we'll take care of the business ourselves. Or you bring them back to us and we'll handle them. That's the conversation that should have been had. See what I'm saying? So, we clear? Cool. Now, the one thing that I wanted to do was I want to bring up what's going on, Troop? What's happening?
Man, what's up, Aton? Man, I tried to catch you the other day, man, but I was at work. It was too loud enough, but you had that when you was bringing up the tax system and everything with the indigenous nations, man. I really like that bill. Like that was a solid bill right there, man. I was able to listen in on it, but I didn't want to jump up because, like I say, you know, it was too loud and I didn't want to be coming out the mic and, you know, man, that loud ass shit in the background and everything.
You said the tax, which one?
You know, the one that you had, I think it wasn't yesterday. I think it was like the day before yesterday. You was doing like how the tax system go back into ancient times, and you was showing it with the Incas, the Mayans.
Oh yeah,
man. That was
yesterday.
Yeah, man. That was a solid bill, man. Like I actually listened to the whole thing, man, while I was at work. You feel me? I had wanted to jump up, but like I said, man, it was too loud at work. You know, man, I didn't want to pop up and, you know, I couldn't really say too much, man. So I just tapped in. You know, I ain't want nothing, man. I just wanted to get up here and tell you, you know, man, solid bill, man. Keep doing what you're doing, man. Your channel gonna grow.
I appreciate it. Well, the one thing, like when I started reading through that encyclopedia, I was like, damn. It's like it seemed like everything that our forefathers and foremothers did back then seemed like the United States still run the same program. It's just kind of been bastardized and kind of been reversed a little bit against the people. You know what I'm saying? That's what it kind of looked like to me. I was like, damn.
Yeah, and you know, man, it just goes to show what people been saying for the longest, that, you know, man, all they did was just, you know, they came through the block, bought the jab, took it back home, threw it back in the pot, re-rocked it, and tried to sell it, you know, like it was still Pepsi when it was, you know, all these cola. You feel what I'm saying? Like,
right.
You know, so like, yeah, man, that was some good work right there, man. Like I actually enjoyed that deal, man. You know, man, cause like when I take my lunch or whatever, you know, I'll sit upstairs and in our little office, you know, I'll pop on YouTube and you was live, so I clicked it and I'm just eating and listening. I'm like, and I'm looking, I'm like, damn, like, okay. Like Aton got some work over here, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, man, that was some solid info.
Appreciate that, brother. Now let me ask you a question, because I was, you know, this capitalism and communism type shit, right? So I'm like, everything that I seen what was done here in Americas had a form of communism, right?
Right. But like what aspect of
communal? Yeah, you know, just as the structure of how they handled their business, how the people work with each other and all that stuff. It was more communal. But like this communism, what they talk about today is a little bit like flipped upside down. It's like it's more of like a form of trying to get somebody to buy into it, but really they still have this whole capitalistic or feudalistic fascist approach to what they're doing. And I think it's just more of a draw on our people to accept communism in their form.
Right. I mean, you know, the way like they'll lay out the foundation of communism, right? Like you can hear that and you be like, okay, yeah, that's how it's supposed to be. But in actuality, what these guys who is spewing the communism, they're using that to grasp the mind of the people, but they actually running a hierarchy instead of communism. You know, almost like how China is, and like how places that still got kings and queens, it's a hierarchy in actuality instead of it being communal like how it's supposed to be. So they preaching a good game, but then when the system come in play, they actually run a fascist hierarchy instead of real, I guess what you would classify as what communists supposed to be. That's how I see it. You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's how I look at it too, right? Because you've been in Chicago for most of your life, and you know about the groups out there that had the food. They set up all these things, the whole food process. The GDs out there, and we know out here in California about the Black Panthers, what they did. It was like they all kind of gravitated to that communistic. I think that ideology because they were already doing it, and it seemed like these outsiders were already like playing to what we already know to be true and what it is, and say, yeah, these people about capitalism, they about this and about that, we're about this, and they already know. We say, yeah, that's what we do anyway. Yeah, we want to feed our own people, but at the same time, they're turning this communistic thing into some type of oligarchy, versus what we were actually doing. Well, I say not we, but the people that
Our
came
people.
before us were doing.
Yeah, our people,
It was automatic, So I'm like,
Yeah, and it is more oligarchy with them. But the thing is about capitalism is that we can utilize capitalism to usher in the things that we do want to do, going back to what our people in the past did. We don't necessarily even have to call that communism. We could just call that our form of a system. You feel what I'm saying? Without the title. But like we can utilize capitalism to be able to usher those things in, because the capitalism utilizing those tactics, you feel what I'm saying, to bring forth the wealth, a continuous wealth at that, you feel what I'm saying? And take that wealth to usher in the programs that we want to do. You feel what I'm saying? Like, the food programs, the after school programs, the educational programs. Our kids might be in the school system, but we can also, form these charter schools and usher in, you got the state requirement curriculum, but you can also usher in your own curriculum into it as well too. Just long as those main curriculums is in that they have to pass to get state and federal requirement, as far as like passing. But we can also usher in our own curriculum as well too, because like when I came to Chicago, man, a lot of the schools was like pro-black schools. You feel what I'm saying? So like we used to have to sing, the pro-black national anthem and shit. We didn't do the United States national anthem. We used to have to do that lift every voice and sing shit every morning. You feel what I'm saying? Like that was in like all the schools where our people was at. So it like capitalism is a game to be played. You feel what I'm saying? And a lot of times we're not playing it, to our benefit. We're playing it to their benefit. And, we got to play it to our benefit to bring it back to benefit us. Like we can utilize capitalism, but we don't have to follow the narrative that they put forth that come along with the capitalism. We just go in there and get the money.
Right.
And then, man, take that money and usher in what we want to do. You feel me? They can't dictate how we utilize our wealth. You feel what I'm saying? As long as they're following the guidelines of the Constitution, you get what I'm saying? But man, it's a game, man, and we've been playing it wrong. And we don't want to go up under the communist title because it's been hijacked by outsiders to basically do fascist and hierarchy and oligarchy type of things that give it a bad name. So we don't want to fall up under that category, because then even though we doing right, if we take on that title, it's going to put a bad spotlight on us because we took that title, and we know what they're going to show as far as like we trying to say we communists and shit like that.
Yeah, I mean, Fred Hampton, I think all the groups, not just GDs, I think all the groups out there was about their community. And this is where the capitalists came in on, when you think capitalism, you think monopoly. Like, that's what I think, monopoly, depending on what the situation is. And, during that time, and that's why I kind of focus on the self-determination and all that, like all these groups going all the way back, you know what I'm saying, to Noble Drew Ali, all these people was working off self-determination. On one of my presentations, I actually showed that every black movement was operating under Title 25 of the United States Code, which is the Indians. Even these Pan-Africans were still getting money on self-determination. In order to get that money in self-determination, you either get it from one or two locations. You get it from the Robert Kennedy Jr. He's the Secretary of Health and Human Sources, and you either get it from the Secretary of the Interior. There's only two places you're going to be getting funding from when you're dealing with the Self-Determination Act. But it originated in Title 25 of the United States Code, which is the Indians. Now, the other aspect of it is, if we're dealing with it from a communal perspective, which we were doing, we got attacked. From every angle. So, how you get around that? You know what I'm saying? Truth, how you get around it so it could, because it seemed like in the United States, the government has really got a pinpoint on what they would consider to be communists. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right. And that's why you got to beat them at their own game. You get what I'm saying? You got to call them out on the principles, the democratic principles that they claim to stand on. So when they attack you, you don't, you ain't got to necessarily, go off the wire. All you got to do is just hit them back with their own words. Y'all claim that yada, yada, yada. Well, this is what we doing. Why is y'all doing this? You feel what I'm saying? But like, the thing is that we gotta get into all levels of society. You get what I'm saying? Government levels, we ain't been having proper representation on the government level, because even a lot of the so-called people that cosplaying us based off skin color, and when you start doing genealogy, they turn out to not even be from here. So that's one. We can't expect them to push our ideas. We got to understand that, we fought for those people to come up over here, hoping to have allies based on what we to help them do and gaining their independence over there. But instead, they came over here, and they was the easiest people to get to turn. And once the government realized that, they utilized them as a buffer class, as to be able to still do what they need to do, because they know that these people right here was easily to be influenced to sell us out.
Right.
At first they didn't want them, but then when they came and they seen how they moved, they realized, okay, you feel me? We can use them against them, so we ain't even having proper representation. We really need to get back in the media field and not sell our companies when they get big. You feel what I'm saying? Keep them in hand so that you can control the narrative that is being broadcast on the airwaves. You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah. They do that too. Every time they get big, they sell that thing.
Yeah, imagery is everything. Yeah. That's why people that come from nothing can easily build an empire, because of the imagery that they're pushing out And this is the imagery that they want implanted in the mind of the people on how they should move. You get what I'm saying? We definitely need to get more active as far as education, as far as what being taught to the kids coming up, and also even some adults. You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So these are all things that we had our hands in at one point in time. And when you look at it, when we had our hands really in it at that time frame, these are the time frames that we all look back on to be like, you know, we had wealth and we had this and that, but these are all the things that we was involved in though. And now we're not involved in it like how we was back then. And this is why we got the decline of, you know, society that we see today. You feel what I'm saying?
Just want to share that with y'all. So there's still a lot more to talk about. But yeah, man, it's 2:00, man. What's up, now? I got like 5 minutes and I got to roll, man. I got an appointment at 2:00. What's going on, brother? None. Can't hear him. That's cool. That's cool. That's cool. Don't come up, none. What I was going, well, yeah, it's already 2:00. But yeah, I got to stop it right there. What I might do, since I went early and a lot of people didn't get to notice till late, I might go tomorrow for a little bit. But yeah, I got to get on this meeting. All right. All right. No music. I got to roll. If I come back up, I'll come back up. I don't know. Let's see if any if any of the brothers don't go live, then I'll go live for a little bit and we could just chop it up. And then I'll let y'all know. All right. All right, y'all, in a minute. I got to roll, none.
Oh, hey, what's up? What's
Yep.
up, Aton? You great, roll?
Yeah. Yeah, I got
All right,
a
cool.
meeting.
Look on that document, right?
Uh-huh.
Look on that document. I just came in and seen you, bro. Find out who was working that land, bro, for them.
Okay. Yeah, I got
Your
that.
family land.
Yeah.
You got the information.
Yeah, I got that information.
All right, because I want to know that because I've been looking in our people who land and how they flipped it on us, bro, and who was working the land in that contract, or did they bring outsiders? Which I don't think they was doing that, but I think it was our people, bro. They flipped it on us. So this next time, bro, I want to know. You know, what I mean, just let us know who was working the land.
All right. Yeah, no doubt.
You can.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. That's all I wanted. That's all I wanted.
All right, for sure. Appreciate that.
All right, bro. Peace.
All right. All right, y'all. We out.